Hello, this is Chuck Hampton with the Dallas Firefighters Museum. Today we have a special guest with us, outgoing Chief of Staff Ted Padgett. Chief Padgett is retiring and moving back to his home state of Tennessee, and I wanted a chance to capture some of his knowledge and experience before he got away from us. Chief Padgett, welcome to the museum, and thank you for joining us today.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
So I'd like to kind of start at the beginning. About the application process, your desire to be a firefighter. Did you always want to be a firefighter?
A lot of people don't know this, but my granddad Padgett, was an assistant chief in Columbia, South Carolina. And so when my dad was in Vietnam, I spent a lot of time with my grandparents there. And of course, at that time, he was a BC at the station. And so I was that proverbial kid that was running around the station that everybody goes, oh, I wish he'd go away. So that was kind of in the back of my mind. But the way I got into the fire service, out of college, I became a pilot in the Air Force. Got out of the Air Force on January 17th of 1985, and I was actually headed home to Tennessee because I was going to go to law school, and stopped in Dallas, and a family that my dad knew when he was in the military lived here, and I had dinner with them that night, and their son had been hired, and he said, hey, they need to hire 250 firemen, and we work one day and off two, and I went, what? And at that time, the application process was every day of the week. You went down there and took a test at old 2014 Maine. Took a test that had some general vocabulary and things, and they scored it on rating of 1 to 7, and apparently I made all ones because as I walked out, a guy named Captain Bailey,
Wilts Bailey.
Yes, sir. He said, hey, before you leave, because he knew I was headed back to Tennessee, he said, if you can stay over, I'd like for you to do the agility test on this Friday. He said, tomorrow, Thursday, because I took the test on a Wednesday, he said, we'll do a back x-ray and stuff for you. Next thing you know, I did my agility and everything on Friday, and then sat in front of an interview board on that Friday with Howard Russell, who was the new section chief, Kenny Dorsett, and Mike Zack. And I was from the Air Force, so I had background clearance already, so it just streamlined everything, and I started rookie school February 6th, 1985.
That's amazingly fast.
Yeah, big time fast, yes, sir.
So in that interview, did they do a little bit of the good guy, bad guy routine?
Yes, sir. Yeah. Played all the things about, seeing how smart I was, I guess, and played we don't do this and that, and do you think you can handle this, and what if you get here and these people want to do that? Can you take that agitation? Can you do... And I've always been an agitator. At that time, coming from the Air Force, where I was a new second lieutenant, I was able to do the military bearing and say, I can handle what you dish out, yes sir, no sir. Not very talkative in the interview, just yes sir, no sir type of answer.
Very good. And at that time, still went through a polygraph test?
Yes sir, had to do a polygraph, and I remember one of the questions they asked was, have you ever worn women's undergarments? And I remember thinking, what? And you'd fill this out, and then it was done by the arson investigators, and you're behind this two-way mirror. It's a two-way mirror, and you're looking at it, and they go, if you'd like to change any of your answers, you can do that now. And so I'm like, no, I told the truth and everything, but on the women's undergarments, I said yes. And the guy was like, why? I said, well, I was a letterman in college in football, and we had to dress up, and I didn't want to lie. I was like, yeah, I did. And he was like, oh, okay, no, we don't mean that, But I mean, they had some weird questions back then.
Oh, yes, they did.
Sexual activities and things, and I was like, oh, okay, what am I getting into here,
Yep, I remember that.
That was unusual, but I do remember the polygraph, and then sitting there, them giving you like 30 minutes to change your answer. You're on the hot seat going, what do I do now?
Intentionally trying to make you nervous during that wait.
Exactly.
So you got hired on, you went to rookie school. Who were your rookie school instructors?
In rookie school, I had Captain Kitchens.
Yes.
I had, at that time, Lieutenant Robert Jacobic and Tom Chase. And I was in class 211, and there were 3 classes out at Old Record Crossing.
Yeah.
And we were kind of the stepchildren class that really didn't have a true class instructor. So we had Kitchens. He had been out there because he had gotten burned at a fire, got injured, was out there, and he was actually pretty rough on us. And then Howard Russell was the new section chief over that. And so really our main instructor was Robert Jacobic, who became a really good friend of mine later on in my career, but he was, because I didn't have parents or anybody here in Dallas, he became kind of a mentor to me along with some others in my life throughout the department that have been my family. I have no family in Texas. I've been here 35 plus years, and this has been my family.
Was Jacob the one that you mentioned to me that became ill?
Yes, sir. I followed his career. He went into hazmat, was a captain in a hazmat station. I came there, talked him into taking the BC test. He made chief and went out to training.
Yep.
And I used to run with him all the time and all, and he ended up getting colon cancer, and I was actually sitting with him when he died. Good friend, good man, and just somebody, like I said, I took kind of as more of an older brother, but really a father figure.
Yeah. So after rookie school, you graduated rookie school. Where was your first assignment?
The first assignment, I got selected to go to Truck 19B, which back then, I don't know if it's that way now, but you were kind of, it's like a draft pick coming out of rookie school.
Yeah.
You did some things out in the field, and then the word kind of got out, this is a good rookie or whatever, and I'm not beating my own horn here, but I thought I got a first round draft pick because we were all in District 1 at that time, so it was the good guys. We were at Station 3 and 4 and 19s, and I thought I had died and gone to heaven because we were having fires all the time. My first shift, we had 2 fires, and I was like, man, this is what you dream about.
Yeah.
And you'd call all your rookie buddies that were working up north or something and go, hey, we had a fire. We haven't had anything yet. Like, dude, you need to come down here. But so yeah, I went to 19s out of rookie school. My captain was Bunky Monroe, and my lieutenant. I had good crews over, and of course James Harris. He used to take my money all day on little bumper pool, but it was old 19s.
Was James the cook?
James was the cook. Yes, Jesse Valentine. There was,
I remember all those guys. Yeah. Oh yeah.
They were all Ryle Sexton. All of them were over there. So we had a truck and an engine. Of course, as a rookie, you're riding the engine, even though I was assigned to Truck 19. So we had a Ford Fact. It was one of the first 5 inches in the city. And so I was there for my basically month and a half. I came in as a rookie after Paul Julian was the Rookie of the Year there.
Oh, yeah.
Paul, great officer, but man, it made it hard on a rookie.
Yeah.
Being there, you're the last one to ever sit down. You're up all the time. You go to bed last. You get up early. You do the. I mean, just like what rookies did. You went. Station 8 had a squad, which was a Suburban with 4 guys on it. I transferred there as soon as I could, and I worked for Diamond Jim McCurdy. My lieutenant was Wendell Atkinson, and was on the squad there. And this is where, because we came out of rookie school in July, I was mowing the yard at Station 8 on like a Wednesday afternoon, and paramedic school had already started for classes above mine. And British Tharp, a guy that he pulls up an old Chief car. It was a Dodge with a little bubble gum thing on the roof. And I've got a sweat stain. We had the button-up shirts. I'm out there mowing that little yard. And he said, come on, you're going to paramedic school. Well, paramedic school had been going for a week and a half already.
They put you in after it started.
Yeah, and I'm going, oh, okay. I'm ready when the next class starts. But I had been a paramedic before. When I was in college, I worked at a ski resort, and I'd been a paramedic, but not a Texas. At that time, you were state certified, not national.
Yeah.
And since I'd been a medic, they thought someone had to drop out because of some kind of illness. And so they threw me in. The first day, Dr. Atkins is doing the EKGs. And this was easy for me because I just had to learn the drug differences here. But so, I got picked up, and I used excuses like, man, I don't have, next thing I know, I'm sitting out there in class with sweat stain, and, he said, I'll bring you paper and book. He took me to class.
So when was this?
This was July, say a month later, August. This would have been September 1985.
Okay.
I'm sitting in rookie school of EMS, paramedic. And so I hit the ground running, really got certified and all, and went to Station 3 in January of 86 and was on the ambulance.
Who were some of your riding partners there at 3?
Kenny Odom, Preston Graves, Richard Jackson. I was on D shift and C shift. Barry Smith. Well, that was another.
Okay. Yep.
That was another father figure because he was at 8s when I first went over there, and then of course when I went off to paramedic school, came back. He was at 3s, and so I came to 3s. Had Stidger on B shift and Captain Smith, Barry Smith on C shift. And so at that time as a rookie, I was always subbing for people. You worked on both shifts, but I had my original partners on the ambulance was a girl named Tracy Thomas.
Remember,
and Leo Gendro, who didn't want to fight fire, but he wanted to ride the ambulance, which at that time was kind of weird. But I got over on C shift. Of course, Richard Jackson was on B shift. I got over on C shift, and Kenny Odom, Preston Graves, Randy Yanowski, Mark Stovall, those were all my rookie school buddies and ambulance riders.
Cool. Good times at Station 3, I'm sure.
Yes, sir. I mean, you were busy, but on Barry Smith's shift, you had to be an athlete. So when we weren't training, we were outside playing volleyball. Matter of fact, even went and got floodlights from an old gymnasium. He had them set up in the parking lot. We were out there at nighttime playing, You'd catch your runs and you put your bunkers on and go. Literally, I say bunkers. No one wore the bunkers then because we had three-quarter boots. And you'd hear, pull them up, you got one. You'd know to pull those three-quarter fishing boots up. And our fire coats were longer, I learned a lot from the older heads there, but we didn't wear bunker gear till probably, at night you would sometimes, but most of the time, I think it became mandated around maybe 88.
I would say late 80s.
88, 89. So
Station 3 is referred to as the Gator Pit. Is there a story there?
Yes, sir. The Gator Pit. If you've ever been to Station 3 or the way it's built, it has a atrium right in the middle off of the day room, kitchen area. And when they built it, they put some landscape out there that had like some yopon trees and things, but what they found was it doesn't get enough sun, and so everything was just a muddy quagmire pit out there. Well, some old heads, this was before I was there, back then, apparently in the back of a magazine, they saw an ad for buying alligators. And you could order them through the mail, and they showed up, and they had these 2 little fingerling alligators, I guess, and they decided that little swampy area is where they were going to grow them. Well, they kept them there and feeding them their scraps from the Eat Fund until they got so big it was scaring them. And they called the Dallas Zoo, and the zoo actually came,
and
got the alligators. And from then on, it's been called the Gator Pit. And now it's been, they've boarded it up and made it into a grill area. But used to, that was the initiation for rookies. You'd get out there and they'd shut the door and then run the hoses over the roof and kind of soak you down. And just stuff to camaraderie building. People would see it as hazing and all now, but it was all in good fun. And it was just a rite of passage.
Very cool. So at some point you became deeply involved with hazmat. How did you come to be involved in hazmat?
Well, I made second driver, rank that we used to have, and I went to Station 57, which was at that time Battalion 11.
Oh yeah.
I drove James Wood of BC as a second driver, and as soon as I could get back to 3s, I did. So I came back as a second driver. Well, I made driver, and I was at Station 18 when they put in Rescue 18, 718 then, as a full-time ambulance. Okay, so this was 91, I think, when they put the ambulance in. So we had a fire downtown Dallas at Dakota's. It's a restaurant that's underground, and unusual for us to have a fire down there, but we had a good fire. And I remember sitting on the curb, not like today where you get all clean, but I had snot hanging and everything. And we had a battalion chief named Larry Anderson, and he walked by, and I was coming up on my 10th year on the ambulance, and I was a driver, and he said, Padgett, and of course I didn't even know the chief knew who my name was, and that's the first thing, like, what should I do now, and he said, I see you have a letter to get off the ambulance. I said, yes, sir, I wrote a letter to get off the ambulance, but I was like number 6 or 7. And he said, yeah, but you're the only one that doesn't have a specific hole that you wanted to go to. I said, well, I can work anywhere. He said, you ever thought about driving chief? I was like, no, sir. And that's all he said, and he walked away. Well, at that time, we were getting $25 a month to be a paramedic. So, that was big money. And every now and then you'd have a overtime ambulance, maybe you could drive, 770, 771.
Yeah.
Well, the next shift, the main line rings. My lieutenant was Rex Stovall. And he says, Padgett, I get on there, and it's Larry Anderson. He said, report to fours. You're now my driver. And I remember going, oh, golly, what have I done? And I hung the phone up, and I called my wife, who's a nurse at Baylor in the ER. And I said, I think I might have just messed up, because I'm fixing to get off the ambulance, and I'm going to lose, $5,000 a year. That was a lot of money back, well, it still is now, but it was a lot of money back then.
Yeah.
And I remember my wife saying, you better take it and run, because I see a way that's coming because of EMS, that EMS is going to get bigger and bigger, and you're going to be on the ambulance longer and longer. When I hired on, same with you, I'm sure, they said, well, you'll ride 2 to 4 years.
Right.
And then 4 years was 6, and 6 was 8. And if you didn't promote out,
Yeah.
I was coming up on I remember it was almost my 10th year, because I was fixing to have to take my biennial. And those were the harder tests. The state test was easy. It was the biennial. And I got off in May of, I guess it was 96. So that would have been almost 10 years. And I went over to fours. That's where the hazmat team was. And I was driving Battalion 1.
Yep.
We were supposed to have a lieutenant's test. That was when the day before the test, they froze the big list.
Right.
And, we went, 5 years without having any deal. So I was at Station 4, got into hazmat then as a driver. And when we opened test up again, made lieutenant, of course, still in hazmat. And finally made captain and became the hazmat coordinator, and that's kind of how I got into the whole rigmarole. Really, I got into hazmat, back to your question, because as a driver of the chief, I could not ride the seat on any of the other apparatus because I was not hazmat certified.
Okay.
Larry Anderson did me right. I learned a lot from him. And I would say this, driving the chief, it gives you a tactical advantage to see fire from a way that you've never seen it before. You see what's done, who's not, and Larry Anderson was one of our last deputies, I think, that did not have a college degree, but he had books. This is a guy that had as close to a photographic memory between him and Ennis Hill of anybody I've ever met. Ennis obviously was educated. Larry Anderson was educated by self and coming up the hard way, and he was a very good tactician. Him, Howard Russell, Chief Jones, there's a lot of good ones out there, but that was the only way for me to get into hazmat was to be able to ride the seat, was to become certified.
So you got into hazmat as the Battalion 1 chief driver, and then you made lieutenant.
Yes, sir. Let me back up. I went to the first, I sat for the very first Texas
Commission on Fire Protection hazmat test.
Okay.
Myself, George Wilcox, and Steve Harris. There was someone else, Paul Stodzel. We took the very first test, because before then, it was kind of like Swiftwater stuff. Nobody's TCFP certified, but Benny Howard was our hazmat coordinator at that time, and he was on the state commission, and he got it to where it was regulated, because we would see runs we would make, and someone would go, I'm a technician, and they could barely spell technician, much less know what you're doing, and we took it serious. And at that time, the state only required 80 hours. We were doing classes that were 160, 200 hours.
I tore a bicep, and I was a lieutenant, and I was on light duty for about 4 months out there. And
Benny Howard, who had made captain, he was a lieutenant at first.
Yep.
When he made captain, they just made that coordinator job a captain's position. Well, during the time he was off, though he was a captain, I was a lieutenant on light duty out there, and I kind of just became the hazmat guy. I didn't want to do that job. I wanted to go back to the field. So John Ostrowski was a captain out in the field and had some background in hazmat, worked with TI closely, a guy named Rob West and things. He took the job, and I was there during the 9/11 issues with as a lieutenant with Robert Jacobic out there. He was over special ops at that time. And so John Ostrowski came in that fall in like October of after 9/11, and I got to go back to the field. And in 2005, I made captain, and I came out there. I had a choice between Station 16 and hazmat coordinator. And I already knew I didn't want to really do that job. I didn't want to do a staff job.
Yeah.
But staff jobs helped you down
Exactly.
the road.
After that, you found yourself as an executive level chief officer.
Yes, sir.
And I was kind of curious, what's it like to go from being one of the guys to being in a position where you really can't be one of the guys?
Well, let me back up because there's a story there.
Okay.
As a captain in 2010, at that time we had a Special Operations Bureau, and we had an assistant chief that came here from Las Vegas, Eugene Campbell. And they decided, we had our chief at the time, Eddie Burns, and they decided that the fire department was going to take over the bomb squad from the police department. There had been an issue with, at that time, Chief Kunkel, with some of the griping about their bomb squad. They couldn't get people on the team. We have 24-hour firefighters. Eugene Campbell was a bomb tech. Eddie Burns was a bomb tech. They said, let's let the fire department take it over. And in their infinite wisdom, and I say that with tongue in cheek, they determined that only lieutenants and captains could be on this bomb squad.
Okay.
But you had to be a police officer. Well, our officers are mostly older guys. We have all these boys and girls and men and women that have come back from Iraq, Iran, and all that have more bomb knowledge really than most of the bomb squad teams across the country because of IEDs and stuff. Well, they didn't want the young ones. And in their infinite wisdom, they decided, well, we have peace officers that are in the arson division, so let's just use them. Well, those people didn't want to be in that. So they came to the ops side and said, okay, we're going to do a test. Well, I put my hand up, and we did the little test and all, and next thing I know, Jeff Wallace and myself are in police academy for 9 months. I went in at 265, and I came out at 210. And it was 9 months of running 35 miles a week, doing a lot of MMA. Of course, the TCOL, they call it T-CLOSE at the time, Texas Commission on Law Enforcement. You only have so many hours you can get certified. I could have done that at a junior college or something, but we went to the Dallas Police Academy with other classes. We had 67 people that started our class. We graduated 41.
And you're doing the exact same class that the actual people that are
I'm
going to be Dallas
certified
police
even
officers
now
doing.
as a Dallas police officer, carry a firearm that they issued me. I have the flak jackets and rifles and all that stuff. And that came about because Eugene Campbell wanted me to be, and I only did it, I was the oldest at that time the police academy never had. I was 49 years old. And the oldest they'd had before that, they had a cutoff limit at 33. So I was called Pawpaw Padgett, and the instructors out there didn't even know that I was a fireman. They were younger. They did until we had a class about 6 weeks in, and we were going over drug recognition, and an officer came in named DeTamble and his partner, and they go, Captain Padgett. And I'm back here, as a rookie, they shave my head. I'm like, And it's what I used to tell those rookies. I go, anything you can do, I can do better. I just can't do it tomorrow. I'll be too sore. So I was always competing. They go, man, you're fast. You can do it. I took it as a front that Eugene Campbell, Chief Campbell, thought I couldn't make it through there. I came through there, and I will never do it again. I wouldn't have done it even then. I thought about quitting several times because it's a long
it sounds
beat
tough.
down. But I'm glad I did it, and I did it just to show him I can do this. But the bomb squad never went any further on that, but really have not done much with that peace officer license. But it did get me into the executive level because Chief Bright asked for a new group of staff, deputies, assistants and all. And I applied because I heard no one was trying to become the deputy over special operations. And as you well know, because you were there, that we had some good deputies. One of them, Jerry Knorr and Jones, Chief Jones, Leftwich, and they all retired or left or had issues where they wanted to get back to the field, and no one was really sticking their hand up. And I remember asking Stuart Grant and Rudy Vallis, Robert Vallis at the time, if y'all aren't going to put him, I'm not going to take a chance of having somebody that doesn't know anything about it. I'm going to put my hat in the ring. So I take a beach vacation with my family every year in June. We go to Charleston, South Carolina. Chief Bright announced that Stuart Grant was going to be over special ops, and he was making Rudy Val. And I remember thinking, oh yeah, because I was in the interviews for the same thing they were in. But I thought, oh, I can work for them, that would be good. Well, I went to our beach vacation. It's on Isle of Palm, South Carolina. It's off the coast of South Carolina. You don't get cell phone reception. I had a city phone. And one weekend, we came into the island to have dinner or whatever. My phone started blowing up with all these messages from City Hall. So Monday morning, I called and spoke with Chief Bright, and he was giving me, I thought, the Dear John letter. You know, Ted, I appreciate you applying. I've looked at your resume, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, Chief, I was honored as a captain just to be considered for a deputy chief. Thank you. You know, I said, but yeah, I can work with. And he goes, no, I'm calling you to make you a deputy. And I went, Antonio. And then he was the chief in Round Rock prior to coming here. When he was in San Antonio, he was very close to a compatriot of his that was in Austin that worked for, at that time, Rhoda Mae Kerr, who was the chief of Austin. She came in from an area, actually came from Little Rock, but prior to that, Jacksonville, Florida. And she realized that she really needed to do the political stuff as a fire chief and not be a hands-on chief. And so she created a chief of staff, which was essentially just like here. It's an assistant chief that the other assistants report to. That assistant chief is really doing the day-to-day things for the fire department and allowing the chief of the department to do the political and the baby kissing and handshaking and all that. And yet, even though they're over at the fire department, you're his right-hand confidant that's there to advise him of banana peels, you know, you slip on, or to take up the slack when he's out of town, or whatever needs to be done. And so to keep from having silos, we had a great staff down there, and it just happened to work that he wanted to create this new position, chief of staff. Well, none of us knew what that really did. He brought that individual in from Austin, who had now retired, and literally sat down with all the command staff before he made who the chief of staff was, and walked us through what being a chief of staff meant. And that was the first I'd ever heard about it in the fire department. You know, you promote, you're over this or that, and you have your own silos. Now, we worked without everybody going straight to the chief. You just had a one-way
Seems like a good
ticket.
concept. Has it been successful, do you think?
I think it's been very successful because of, in a city as large as Dallas, with a city manager and a mayor, there is a lot, in 14 districts, council districts, there's a lot of pulling of strings that the chief of the department has to be the face. I mean, he's invited to meetings, and after, people don't even realize how many hours the chief of this department does, where he doesn't really get to focus on the department. And so truly, the chief of the department is more of a political figure. Even though he's a sworn officer, he's a firefighter, he's come up, or she. And the fact is, they are doing the bidding of the bigwigs at City Hall.
And so there has to be somebody that manages the day-to-day operations.
Yes, sir. And I think
Free them up.
I think it's worked really well.
Okay, so looking at the Dallas Fire Department and where we are right now, what challenges, you know, looking at the 50,000 foot level, what do you see as our biggest challenges going forward?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is EMS. EMS is your best PR and it's your worst PR. You know, the troops in the field, because of, well, this goes back, and you're well aware of this, because we do not have call screening in the city of Dallas. Well, let me back up. The city of San Antonio is about 1.3 million, just like Dallas. You know, they have grown. And yet they make close to 150,000 less runs than we do a year. Here we are in 2020. We're going to push probably 350,000 calls. The vast majority of those, 80-something% EMS. Why is that? Whereas San Antonio, the same size, is going to have 150,000 less runs? Why? Well, it has to do with the fact they have call screening. We don't. It also comes to the fact that occurred in 1984. Here we've had an entire generation that knows I call 911 and somebody's going to show up and take me to the hospital, check me out.
And what you're referring to in 1984 is the Billy Myrick incident.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And so that made it to where basically it's called you call, I haul. So
is Dallas, I understand San Antonio is different from Dallas, but what about other major cities throughout the nation? Are most of them doing more our model or San Antonio model or something different?
It's a mix of both. We've looked at what helps. We thought, okay, because again, going back to my thought, we've had an entire generation that doesn't know anything but I call an ambulance. And now with the advent of, we call it Obamacare, but the Health Care Act and all, a lot of people didn't have insurance.
Affordable Care Act.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people didn't have insurance, and we were roving clinics. So here in Dallas, we have tried different things along with our partner hospitals and all, because right now, Dallas is one of the largest, along with San Antonio, ambulance services that are run by the firefighters. So we do all the advanced life support here in the city of Dallas. Most cities have a hybrid where they're either attached to the fire department by some kind of tentacle or proxy, or they're private contractors. You can look to our west here with Fort Worth, and they have MedStar. The firefighters may be paramedics or whatever, but they're not doing the transports and stuff. So you have private entities, but across the country, we thought, okay, if we educate our people, you only need to call for advanced life support issues. That'll help. When we went to Baltimore, we went to Fulton County, and we realized when they did the education, their runs went up.
Really?
Instead of down. And so we thought, it's kind of out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah.
Oh, I've never thought about that. I'm going to call for my ingrown toenail because they're going to come. And so it really had the opposite effect.
Of what was intended.
So back to what you asked, we're one of the largest cities that actually do all the EMS. And as you well know, that's the vast majority of what we do. Yet across the country, fires are down. You can look at our historical data, and our fires have stayed pretty much the same, which is weird. But you think of all the advances we've had of sprinklers and building construction modes and all, we still have about the same amount of fires every year. It's our EMS that has skyrocketed. So back to your question, we do EMS very well, but we also don't do it well because we have medics that have been now on the box 20 years plus that are making 20 runs or more every single day. And that's not to mention filling out paperwork and cleaning ambulances and staying up on their CEs and doing firefighting. And and I have brought that up in front of council before of, we could make the entire fire department happy if we privatized the EMS because we're off the ambulance. But people don't realize, I grew up in East Tennessee. I told you I was a medic earlier. We had rural metro back there, and I watched them come in and take over the fire department EMS. They did all the EMS. And they did great for the first year or two, but 3 years in, when the fire department no longer had a foothold in EMS, all of a sudden the prices go up, the level of care is down, they won't take this individual because they called so many times or whatever. And now you're in trouble because you can't just flip a switch in the fire department and be back in the game.
Right.
We've been in this since '72 when EMS first started here, and it's continued to grow. Now, we have a medical director, and he has ideas about how EMS should be done. And while he's a great guy, I differ in his opinion on how you do this. But we have to figure out a way here in Dallas, and I say we, I'm talking about the command staff, of lessening the burden on our EMS paramedics. Either everyone in this department is a paramedic, or we figure out a way to make it a hybrid type, or even privatize it. We have council members that are on us all the time about how much it costs to do EMS. Public safety is not a revenue generator, and for some reason, downtown thinks it is. Downtown meaning the council members. They want us to get smaller apparatus. We'll do like Europe. They have small engines and stuff. Since y'all are driving those, let's drive those. We have a lot of fires, as I stated. They've stayed the same. You can't have both. Everything looks great on that shelf until you have to pull the book off and realize there's nothing in here. So we have to be prepared for the worst. And yet, EMS, again, our best PR and our worst PR. That's where we have things that I think we should hype a little more, like police department.
Yep.
Hey, we have CPR saves that are never in the paper. Yet we'll have a medic that, they didn't do this or that. And people trying to Monday morning quarterback on a time when you've been on the ambulance, you know how it is. You are a mobile emergency care ER in the middle of a field with maybe riots, darkness, bad weather, you name it, and yet you're trying to make the best decisions you can, riding for 24 hours. This is a problem because we know that sleep deprivation, your ability to make decisions on the ambulance between 7 a.m. when we have shift change to maybe 7 that night, but at 3 o'clock in the morning, I don't care who you are, when you've made 20 runs already, your mind is fried already. It is a testament to our folks of how well they continue to do the job despite all these things that are on
I
top of
agree.
them.
And new research indicates that it may even be linked to cancer, Alzheimer's
Yes, sir.
over a long period of time.
Yes,
So,
sir. Sleep deprivation.
exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah, so it's something to consider. We work 54 hours a week.
Yes, sir.
52,
Minimum.
Yeah, exactly. And, that seems like a good deal for us and the city. The city's happy to get that amount of work for the price of 40 hours. We're happy because we like our 1 day on, 2 days off.
Yes, sir.
But that model only works when you've got some downtime between calls. And the
Correct.
fact is, I work at Station 25 now, and I see Engine 25, busiest engine in the city, Truck 25, the third busiest truck, and Rescue 25, I'm not sure where they're in the rankings, but basically.
Top
these-
10.
Yeah, these guys are not getting any sleep. They're not.
Exactly.
And I do worry about that impact on their long-term health and whether or not the 54-hour-a-week schedule is going to be viable in the future unless something else changes.
And I honestly don't think it is. And back to what you stated, now that we have data, that's one thing the fire department, and quite frankly, I saw this come in with Chief Coatney with, give us data. The police department do great because they can stand in front of things, hey, we have data, we need to do this. The fire department has always in the past, and what I have seen coming up, been able to go down and go, hey, we need a new fire truck. And they go, well, why? Well, we have a station over here, and this. If we have data, which we're now pulling, and we're able to show, this is how many miles we get, this is how many runs they make, this is what we need for this area, for proven with fire loss, et cetera. All this data now that we're generating, which is new in our department in the last 5-6 years, the data's been there. We've just never gleaned it. It's always been in NIMFers or before that DFers. And people just garbage in, garbage out.
Yep.
Well, now we're realizing we need that data because council members are going, just because you say you need this, fire department's not the golden egg anymore or the golden child that gets the golden egg. We have to prove that we need something. And that's been extremely well received, the data now. We're doing, monthly charts that show where we are with budget expenditures and hiring back and things that we're very fiscally responsible because our budget is in the 400+ million, for the fire department. Well, back in the day, it may have only been 190 million, but EMS is going up. We have to keep buying ambulances. You can't continue to run a department. If you and I had a business that was, Ted and Chuck, we can't make any money if we're going to continue to do things the way we're doing. And our employees are number one. And yet now we know with data, cancer, like you said, sleep deprivation, Alzheimer's, things that come about because of the fact that you don't sleep and you try to continue to go and go and go. Your body's not made to do that. We've seen it. It's been in the military. We're a paramilitary organization. Why are we not putting,
Right.
apples and
Absolutely.
oranges, but it's really apples and apples.
Well, Chief, I think that everybody on the department has a lot of respect for your leadership, the way you've conducted yourself as a chief officer. I was wondering if you have any words of wisdom for some of our younger firefighters that might be becoming station officers and chief officers in the future about how they should conduct themselves as officers.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, first of all. But, no, I think it's important, number one, to just be yourself. But what I learned is you put your feet on solid ground, and this is something Abraham Lincoln said, and then you stand firm. And that's something that, don't be wishy-washy. Let people know. People will respect you. They may like you, they may not like you. But if you stand firm on your principles, morals, your beliefs, it'll bode very well for you. I learned coming up, officers I saw do things, and I remember I got a little notebook. I used to write things down. I don't want to do that. I want to do this. Oh, this is nice. And things, as you well know, you've done the same, where, even as a young officer, I would come into maybe a new station, and I didn't have a problem cleaning the toilet, putting the flag up, cooking for them, making dessert, or I can remember some of our troops have given me little comments. They've sent me notes and things. They remember we'd have a big fire and, hey, Ted's buying snow cones at the, 7-Eleven or Slurpees.
Yep.
That was a big thing, and it was camaraderie building. We used to go to games together. I came up with these little bracelets that were Habu Club and Hazmat, stood for Hook a Brother Up. And, it was just something for us, kind
Yeah.
of like challenge coins now,
Right.
to feel like
Yeah.
we're part of a team. And really, this day and age, that has changed because of the internet.
Yeah.
You've seen it.
I
People
have.
come back to station now.
Yeah.
We can all go to our own area. You used to have to play checkers together. You used to
Yeah.
have to. You learned who everyone's wives and friends and girlfriends and concubines, whatever.
You didn't have any place to get away to, even if you wanted to.
No, you did that because
Yeah.
you had to learn to deal with different personalities.
Right.
That's part of management, and understand that people have strengths and weaknesses that you need to look at and go, okay, this person I know has this specialty, but they're weak here.
Yeah.
This person here is great in that. And you also have unofficial leaders in the department that probably would have been great officers, but never chose to
True.
take on
Yeah.
that responsibility.
Right.
One thing people need to realize is as you promote, your level of responsibility increases tenfold each time. And it's something that you take to heart on protecting your individuals. You know, you have three priorities is really kind of what I think about. I have the department, I have the crew that I'm with, and then it's down to Ted. And I don't want to have to get down here where we've got some problems. But you learn to make friendships. You don't burn bridges ever, because people that you do that to, you'll end up working for later. And it's kind of hard to suck back. And if you stay the same, you don't have to. It's kind of like another thing Abe Lincoln said, you know, if I had two faces, you think I'd wear this one? The key is to be yourself,
Yep.
stand firm, and to take note of,
Yep.
honestly, anything that happens at the station needs to be documented somewhere, good and bad. It helps you with your evaluations of your troops instead of just at the last minute going, you know, I kind of like that guy.
Yeah.
Keep notes, keep journals. You know, that's something I do. I know you do. I keep journals of what I do daily, and I can go back and, is that a legacy for my family, kids, whatever? Okay, but it also helps me when I go, someone may ask me about a court case, and I'm going, I don't remember that, but, oh, I remember this day.
Documentation is very important.
Yes, so documentation. I remember when I was on the ambulance, my partners hated it because I'd write a novel for television,
Yeah.
but we never got to a court case where we ever had to explain anything because I said, it's right there. I know what you mean. Here's what I wrote. So as being a good officer, just learn to watch people. I talk a lot, but I keep my mouth shut and I observe before I ever get comfortable with someone. And then take note of what you like in an officer, what you see works and what doesn't work, and then try to be even better than that.
Very good. So, speaking of documentation, I've heard a rumor that you might be working on a book after you retire. Is there any truth to that?
I have a lot of stories. I'm
Yeah.
either going to write a book
Right.
or go to the improv of things that I've seen in this
Yeah.
department and things that
Yep.
some people would think are funny. Maybe
Yeah.
it's a book. You know, I know J.A. Dare was one of the funniest guys I've ever seen, and you know, he wrote a book, and I don't really know how. I have all these stories, and I've kind of put some things together, but it may be more of an improv,
Okay.
or maybe a comic book. I don't know. I enjoy writing.
Yep.
But I also enjoy reading, and I don't want something that everyone's going to go, okay, page 5, I'm tired.
Yep.
But if you tell the stories people can relate to, I
Yep.
mean, there's all kind of things that have happened. You've seen it, and when you think you've seen everything, you go, okay, I've seen it all. Poke my eyes out with a stick. And the next day you go, man, I have never seen that before, you know. And yet, here in the big city, we make so many runs that I think of a story of being out there at Hazmat. Ray Thomason, lieutenant, was with me, and we got a call for a purple-headed goat that
What?
came from our 311.
Yes.
And they used to call Hazmat all the time. And I said, what? And the lady said, well, I didn't know who to send this to. So I finally called the lady, and she's living down here off of Hatcher Street, which is now
Elsie Faye.
Elsie Faye Higgins. And she tells me where she is, and we come down there because I said, we're coming. And Ray and I got there, and sure enough, there was a goat that had purple paint all over it. And so the only thing we could think of is Lincoln High School is down there, and their colors are gold and purple. And we're thinking that
Yep.
either a prank or that it was in her back
Yep.
fenced yard,
Yep.
and it was chewing up her garden, but either it bit into a spray can or, but we got there, a purple-headed goat. There's a purple-headed goat, and of course we call animal controls and
Oh,
all,
man.
but hey, Never thought I'd see that, but there it is. Okay.
That's
So-
amazing. Well, Chief, you mentioned Jay Adair's book. We do have Jay Adair's book for sale in the gift shop in the museum. And so if you do get around to writing a book, I want you to know we're going to have yours proudly on display here in the museum. Thank you very much, Chief
sir.
Padgett, and good
Yes,
luck
sir.
in your retirement.
Thank you very much, sir.
That's all today, troops. Thank you for your time.